Somewhere about 6 kilometers near the stadium in Pune, there is a police station, and a few individuals have filed an FIR against the Gujarat team, their captain, and many of their players because they've just gone and stolen something major from the stadium at Pune. They've stolen a game they had no business to win. I have no idea how they did that. It was down and out. They were done and dusted. They'd lost wickets. Yes, they had a chance. There were ifs and buts, and they turned the ifs and buts to maybes, and then yes, we've done it. What a finish. What a win for Gujarat. Heartbreaking, gut-wrenching for Chennai. 170 for 7 when they had lost wickets up front. It was looking pretty much all over. David Miller, many years ago, he got that 100 that kept him going forever. And now he's shown that he's still alive. The killer is still alive. 94 of 51. And don't count out the skipper for the day, Rashid Khan. 40 of just 21. Wow, that was quite an effort. Catching our breaths on Cricbuzz Live. Yeah, we've got 2 games to talk about, but I suspect we'll talk a lot about this one. I'm joined by Michael and Lisa. I can only ask the question. Anyone wants to take it? Michael, where did that come from?
Well, the brilliance of Miller, but it was Rashid Khan, that 18th over. Chris Jordan, I did say pre-match, I've never quite got Jordan at the end. I've never seen him see that many games home with his Yorkers, his variations. He seems to miss out a lot. And that it was that 18th over, Rashid Khan just turned the tide, smashed it for 25. Then they did 26 off 2. And then they go back to him to bowl the last over. It was a big call from Ravi Jadeja to go back to Chris Jordan when he's just been hit for 25. Huge amount of pressure on him. And up against David Miller, who he just got his game. You could see actually from ball 1 when he went out there, he was very busy, very kind of proactive. And, you know, when you get him in that kind of form on a good pitch, he can strike it down the ground. He's got that lovely flick over mid-wicket. And he uses the pace beautifully as well on his pads. A fine innings, but Chennai must be sitting in that dressing room now going, how have we just lost that game?
I mean, when you saw Rashid Khan bat, Lisa, I don't know if you play many cricket computer games on the Xbox. There are guys, there are little characters in there, and you strike it with the perfect timing, it goes whack. And there's almost a recoil, to quote a word that Simon Dool used, and it goes for 6. And you're like, it doesn't happen in real cricket. But with Rashid Khan, it does.
Yeah, it does. And we've seen it time and time throughout his career in various domestic competitions. But also, if you follow him on social media, and I do, I've seen him in the nets, and he literally just practices that. It's just the wrist snapping through the ball. And I've gotten frustrated in the past because I think he's a better cricketer than that. I think he can play and hit through the line of the ball nicely, but he always goes to his helicopter shots and his tricky shots. It nearly was an undoing of his after that great over when he was trying to be a little bit too greedy. But luckily for the Gujarat side, he was able just to have that impact that just changed the momentum of the game. And the crowd, which was predominantly Chennai supporting, you could hear a pin drop, couldn't you? Before they were up and about, and then for a period of 3 overs, you just didn't hear a peep from him.
But just tell me, Lisa, how can you bowl to Rashid Khan? He's played the helicopter over mid-wicket, then he's played that wonderful shot over backward point for 6. How have you not bounced him?
Well, I was waiting for the bouncer, and then I was trying to figure out, is it the short side? Is that what they're so concerned about? This is sometimes when you get in the head of, and from a batting point of view and a bowling point of view, you're just trying to protect that short side and you forget about the different lengths. I agree.
Yeah, I've seen Rashid play those square the wicket offside shots for 6 many times. I've seen him play the helicopter many times, but I haven't seen him hook like one from here for 6 that often. And to think that Jordan didn't even try that when he was getting dispatched was, poor cricket thinking.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, the moment Michael Vaughan said that, I could picturize it. He's not, I mean, there are a few players in the world, you give it to them right there, it'll be 20 rows back at deep fine leg, but that's not Rashid's go-to shot. He loves it in his area, half volley, just short of that, length ball, he'll use the helicopter and whip it away. Give him width, it'll be slapped over point. But just to stay with it for a moment, since Michael Vaughan mentioned about Chris Jordan, it's not that Jadeja didn't have options. And I think this was very different from, say, Rahul Chahar going for 29 the other day, and you saying, listen, it was a freak over. Here's another over, get him out. That's a different thing. It was halfway through the innings. This is do or die at the end of the game. And maybe it's not Jordan's day. Maybe it's not his thing. He had options. He could have gone to himself, Mukesh Chaudhary, or even Shivam Dubey.
Yeah, the issue was that the last time they went to Shivam Dubey, he went for 19 runs. So he was kind of crossed off the list. I thought Jadeja as skipper might come in and bowl and take the pace off and maybe bowl into the pitch. I guess we'll never know. And these are the things that they'll dissect as they kind of go through. But I was fascinated to see how many people were in that huddle to figure out who was going to bowl that last over and who and what the field was going to be. There was a lot of chefs in the kitchen. I wonder in the end who decided it was going to be Chris Jordan to bowl.
Well, yeah, we know Chennai in the past have been clinical. They've been lethal when they've had a team down on the mat. It's not that they haven't lost matches before, but when they've had a team on the mat, Lisa, in the past, they've never taken their foot off the throat.
Yeah, it's just different. They just don't have the firepower, do they, this year? They just don't have the players that are having the impact and being able to take those wickets under pressure. I thought DJ Bravo bowled really well. He's still clever with what he's able to do. He loves a contest. He was kind of egging Miller on, like, come on, mate, try and whack me over deep mid-wicket. They just need a few more like that. Losing Josh Hazell or Deepak Chahar, all of these players that they've kind of relied on the last few years, it's starting to show, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, you used the word about opposition not fearing them, Michael. This is that kind of scenario. I'm not going to bring up a Deepak Chahar because he probably wouldn't have been bowling here. He might have bowled out already. But if he had bowled out already, they would probably be in much worse a position and wouldn't even be requiring the 18th, 19th and 20th.
Yeah, and also, a new captain, you want to win tight games. And realistically, it wasn't a tight game and they've lost it. They should have easily won that game by 10 or 15 runs. And I can only imagine what will happen now that, I don't remember seeing MS Dhoni lose too many games like that. You just never used to see an MS side lose a tight game, and he wouldn't have even let it get to being tight. You could see at the end there, he was kind of manoeuvring himself back into the captaincy role of manoeuvring fielders, which is fine. I think Ravi Jadeja would want that from MS Dhoni behind the stumps. But when you're at your infantry stages of being a captain, you really want to win the games that you really are controlling. I always feel as a captain, you pride yourself on getting your side over the line when it gets to that stage of being a little bit tough. It shouldn't have even got to being tough today, but it did. And then you pride yourself on making the right call, getting your players in the right mindset, your fielders in the right zone to see out that game. And that'll hurt Jadeja. It really will. It'll hurt him because it's the real first game that he's probably been in the captaincy seat, trying to direct his side over the line, and it's not managed to go his way. So he'll have to learn from that.
I'm just checking the Cricbuzz app to see exactly what he said after the game. And he said we started brilliantly as a bowling unit. We did well in the first 6 overs. No kidding. They definitely did. When we were batting, the wicket was holding up a bit. The ball was gripping, but we didn't execute our plans in the last 5 overs. There again, stating the obvious. Here's the important part. I thought CJ could execute his Yorkers, but he couldn't do so. That's the beauty of T20 cricket. Not sure he meant to use beauty in that sense, but I guess it just showed that that's the reason he went to Chris Jordan, because, we have seen those Yorkers in the past, but not necessarily just enough in the death.
Yeah, I think, Michael was talking about it, and it was before we kind of got on air, is how many times has he been able to do that and execute the death bowling when his team has needed him to do it. You can bowl one great Yorker and that can hold you for good stead. We talk about Miller and the 100 that he scored, and that seemed to keep him going within the IPL. It's sometimes the myth of that player and what they've been able to achieve in the past allows them to still be current, but you've got to still be able to replicate it when your team needs it the most. And Chennai desperately needed these 2 points.
Yeah, and the only factor that may have been an excuse in other venues, Michael, would have been dew. There wasn't any. The only moisture was in Jordan's forehead.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. I can only imagine the strains and the pressure that players are under when they've got the ball in hand and they're having to bowl to these players that a miss hit flies into the stands these days. But I just haven't seen Chris Jordan deliver at the end of an innings often. I've not seen him see out too many games, and I'm sure there'll be some analysts and statos that can tell me otherwise. But again, the visual and my perception is that he's been missing his Yorkers quite consistently for quite a while, and the ball has been travelling into the stands for quite a while. So for him to have been put under pressure in the 18th over and it not worked, for him to then get the ball again in the 20th, that was a very strange tactical manoeuvre.
Yeah, there was a full toss that was put away. Then there was one that was actually caught at backward point. Looked like a no ball from the naked eye. It was just about, but it was. But let's look at the other side, Lisa. David Miller, long time in Punjab that he spent, now come to a brand new franchise. Now, if you actually look at all the names we thought of in Gujarat when they came in there, Miller was hardly ever mentioned. It was Hardik Pandya, Lockie Ferguson, Mohammad Shami, Rashid Khan, Shubman Gill, you name it. Has Miller ever really been mentioned as, this is one of the big buys of Gujarat? And yet he's done it.
Yeah, he hasn't because he's been quiet for so many years. The stats guys were able to find out he scored 3 half centuries since 2016. So that's why his name isn't the first on your list. But because of what he's been able to do in the past and in other tournaments, he's always gotten a contract. And now, change of colour, change of scenery, different coach, different captain, he seems to have gotten a new lease of life. And that's great to see for him because he is so destructive. I mean, what he was able to do today under the pressure when wickets, were falling around, he firstly just stemmed the flow of wickets, built partnerships, and then he was able to target who he wanted to take and did it quite comfortably.
Yeah, maybe it's a change of environment, and this will certainly kickstart it for him as an individual, but the Titans as well will realize that if they can win matches from positions like that, without their proper captain being there, with the likes of Shubman Gill gone first ball, then that's going to be a huge shot in the arm going forward deep into the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good set of players. You can see that. They've got plenty of depth, great variation. I must admit, I was chuckling at Hardik Pandya on the sidelines. He was in Gary Kirsten's ear every single time. It was like a parrot on his shoulder. Just kept on giving him plenty. It was almost as if Gary would go, "Can you shut up? I want to watch the game." So he was bringing lots of energy from the sidelines. That's a really big win for the Titans. I mean, they've had a good start and they're in a confident mood, but to win from the position that they were in where, no one gave them a chance after about 17 overs of that chase, and to do it without Hardik Pandya and the fact that Shubman Gill didn't contribute at all, that's a big, big win. And if they can get David Miller playing in that fashion as a left-hander, then you put Hardik Pandya next to him as the right-hand combination, they can be a real threat in this year's IPL. They've had a great start, long way to go, but in terms of a new franchise, if you said to them at the start, you'd have had this start now with all these kind of wins so early in our franchise reign, that have ripped their hands off. It's a really good start from the Titans.
It's now really two victories, isn't it? The Tawatia, the two sixes that he needed, and now this one. We saw Hardik Pandya's reaction the first game when Tawatia was able to kind of steal the victory, whereas now they were a lot happier. You could see it was slowly building up nicely. But yeah, to come away with those type of victories early on in the campaign, that's going to help you qualify for finals for sure.
Yeah, unlike their opposition. But I know I go on about fantasy cricket a lot, but forgetting about who scored how many, it's always a good indication of, who is performing and who's not. We had 20 teams in our league competing. Not a single team had David Miller in it. There's an indication of how much under the radar he's been for a while. I can tell you that's going to change very quickly. But let's go to the points table and find out just where things stand. Again, like we said about Mumbai, if you're a Chennai fan, look away very, very quickly. 6 matches played, just the 2 points on the board. How soon is it going to be mathematically virtually impossible for them to make that 4? Gujarat, well, they're getting to a stage when it's going to be mathematically very possible for them not to be out of not to be out of the top 4. 10 points, 6 games, 5 wins, just the 1 loss. And as Lisa said, it's still 2 points even if you get last gasp wins. The Tewatia 6s, and tonight was, well, it was from a position of defeat. That wasn't the only game. We've almost forgotten, just briefly, to look back at what happened in the afternoon. Punjab again will be looking at that game pretty much like Chennai will. Not that they're that much in a position of despair in the points table, but Michael, certainly they'll have a few things to think about because of how clinical the Sunrisers run chase was.
Yeah, I mean, Sunrisers winning, you just copy and paste the 4 victories. You'll say exactly the same things about the Sunrisers, squeezing the field, very good tactically, brilliant captaincy, and then one of Kane Williamson and Aidan Markram gets a not-out score or a decent score, and someone bats around that style of player. It's happened once again. They look a very well-oiled unit. I mean, on the other hand, Punjab, with the bat in hand, they just didn't give Liam Livingston the strike often enough. There was too many balls chewed up, too many egos trying to play their game rather than realising that Liam was playing so well, just give him the strike. That is the big thing I think about in T20 cricket. Can you wipe away egos and play your roles? And I think the Sunrisers do it as well as any. They just know exactly what their roles are and they stick to it. And if someone's having the day out that they can, you just give them the strike. And I think that's why they're a good operation. Punjab have got all the talent, all the skill, all the power. But it concerns me that they just don't seem to have that game awareness to know when to give certain players the strike.
Well, Sunrisers, we keep talking about the road they're on. They lost the first 2 games, and then it's been W. Very, very different for Punjab, because as far as they're concerned, the only L they should think about is Liam Livingston. But look at that. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Now, I'm not saying you should be on a losing streak, but they need to get something, at least 2 back-to-back wins.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? And the fact that Mayank Agarwal wasn't there, I think that did affect their batting and what they were trying to do and their roles within the side. So they've been a side for a number of years now where they kind of go through this topsy-turvy, don't they? They either win a couple and then they lose a couple, or they started the season off a couple of years ago really well and then just lost the back end. Whereas now they're mixing it up. But, like I mentioned it before, it's the roller coaster of emotions that they're all going through. So they've got to try and find an even kill. Otherwise, they're going to burn themselves out pretty quickly. And they've still got quite a few games to go. So they can turn it around. They've shown us that they're playing this new brand of cricket. They're going hard at the top, and sometimes that's not going to work for you. So they've got to figure out, potentially as pitches change and get slower, and the spinners start to have an effect, that their batters may not be able to go big. They may not be able to go hard for that long a period, and they've got to find ways of still scoring runs, ticking the scoreboard over without losing the wickets that they are.
Well, I mean, it's one thing to say that, Lisa, but just in conclusion, do you think they can actually do that? Because they've been pretty set in their ways, saying, listen, this is what we're going to do. This is our method. It's working for us at times. But in order for them to be consistent, as you said, someone will have to turn around and say, listen, maybe we need to back up a little bit. Could that be Anil Kumble, perhaps?
Yeah, Kumble, but also the senior players within the side. Mayank Agarwal, when he comes back in, Shikhar Dhawan. So, some players there to be able to really put their hand up and go, I'm taking this on board. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's as far as Punjab are concerned. So 2 very contrasting victories that we've seen on Sunday. First, it was the Sunrisers, clinical, finished it off. As Michael said, cut paste, they're done. But the second game, there was no question of cut pasting. It was all about Chennai. Came in their hands, slipped through their grasp, picked up, ran away with the Gujarat Titans. That's as far as Super Sunday was concerned. Let's tell you what lies ahead on Monday. This is what's coming up. It's going to be Rajasthan against Kolkata. We've forgotten that they've been around with such a busy weekend that's gone by so far. Again, for Rajasthan, they're a team that's always been looking good. But let's start with Kolkata, Michael, because after their last couple of games, few question marks starting to creep in after not a bad start to the tournament.
Yeah, and I guess at the top of the order is where they'll be looking for a little bit more consistency. They went with Aaron Finch at the top. His technique looks a little bit all over the place at the minute with that left side kind of going to mid-wicket, and he's so petrified of getting LBW, but I'm sure they'll give him another outing. I guess it might depend on Sam Billings if he's back from his illness. He had a bit of an illness, whether he comes back into keep, and that means that Aaron might miss out if he is going to be behind the stumps. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, they've got everything. They've got some real good combinations. Andre Russell's in good form. He struck it beautifully in the last game and got them to a decent total, but it was just that decent total that the Sunrisers like chasing. You just need a little bit more from many of those players. Pat Cummins is a real problem for them because he's obviously had the innings, but he's kind of going at 11s, 12s, and every time he gets the ball in hand, and primarily you've got Pat Cummins in your side to get wickets and try and go for economy around 7.58. You'd take that if he was getting a wicket or two. I guess they've got Tim Southey that could come in. Will they make that change? So there's a few little decisions that Baz McCullum and his management team will have to make to try and get that performance levels just up by about 10 or 15%.
Yeah, it's really tough calls. Again, if you jump onto their social media, after that second loss, it was Aaron Finch along with Shreyas Iyer and Baz McCullum who was actually doing the talking in the dressing room, telling everyone, this is when we come together. When we win, it's fine. But when we lose, that's the time to come, not point fingers, but let's do it as a unit. So he's obviously senior. Pat Cummins is very senior, captain of Australia, yet both of them are candidates to be dropped. How hard a call is that?
Yeah, this is the IPL, isn't it? I mean, you look at some of the players that sit on the bench, you look at the price tags that have been bought, and then they're just running drinks. But the balance of getting your 4 internationals and trying to ensure you've got what you need from top orders, all-rounders, your fast and your spin bowlers. Sometimes some of the best players are sitting on the dugout. That's why we love the IPL. So we've seen it time and time again that it doesn't matter what your name is and what you've done historically. If you're not up to scratch and there's someone else within that squad, they might get the nod ahead of you.
I've always thought with the IPL, what they should do halfway through, they should bring in another team, and that team is picked from the dugouts.
Yes.
Pick another team from the dugouts, and you see if they can then qualify to the eliminate. But they've got to win at least 60% of their games that they come into play.
Oh, I love that. I love that. The replacement 11. I tend to do this in my spare time, Michael.
They're not playing. They're not playing for any Friday, but they're sat in the dugout. But you're kind of going, I wouldn't mind that player. I wouldn't mind that player. You pick an 11, and they could go on and win it. There's that much quality that, as Lisa says, you kind of sit and watch. The camera pans into the dugout, and you go, I can't even believe he's there. Why isn't he playing? It happens all the time.
That's right up my street, Michael. I can tell you, I'll add to that. We can have 2 teams. One is the replacement from the dugouts, and one is an 11 from those who weren't even picked in the auction. You'll still get you'll still get a decent 11 from that.
You would.
What a second half of the tournament we've had. 10 established teams in there, 2 more come in, challenging everybody. Oh boy, that'll be fun. It almost reminds me of Australia playing 2 teams in their triangular.
Yes.
And added another team, and Australia A and Australia B both make the final.
Yeah.
Perfect. Gold. Take us back to the vintage of that.
Yeah, don't remind England of that. They very rarely reached the triangular finals back in the 90s because it was Aussie versus Aussie A.
Oh boy. So that's what we have there. What about the opposition? Yeah. Do we want to drop anyone? Do we want to rest Butler? Do we not like him anymore? No, let's look at Rajasthan now. That's a very, very strong, very settled lineup. The only surprise for me was seeing Jimmy Neesham come in there. But of course, we're expecting Trent Boult to be back, hopefully, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, Bolt's the key. If Bolt's back, I think, he brings so much quality. That option of getting wickets at the start, he can bowl pretty much any time in the 20 overs, and he's so consistent. And also, if you notice with Trent Boult, what you have the Rajasthan Royals, generally it's Trent Boult at mid-off or mid-on, and Josh Butler at mid-on and mid-on. You know, they've got two experienced heads that are just kind of into the bowlers, just having a little chat here and there, making sure the angles are right. So you've almost got three captains. You've got the triangle in place for the Rajasthan Royals. You've got Sanju behind the stumps, and then you got Butler and you got Trent Boult. It's a good combination.
So we call it the Bermuda Triangle, or anything in between that. The batters, they just disappear.
It's quite a big triangle, isn't it? From New Zealand to London to Sanju. Where's Sanju from?
Down south in Kerala.
Down south. It's an almighty triangle.
Well, actually, now that you mention that, it's exactly like the triangle we've got right here on the show on Cricbuzz Live. Yeah. We're going from Sydney to up north in England and right here in the eastern part of India. So not as big, but yeah, geographically almost as big. There you go. Bermuda Triangle. We'll find another name for this one.
One thing that I do want to highlight is Shimron Hetmeyer. I think he's done really well for them. We've got two big hitters that are kind of facing off at the death. Shimron strikes at around that 260. Andre Russell about that 200. So it's going to be who can bowl well at the death if either one of them are going. So it should be another close clash between these two teams.
Yeah, there's probably almost, since Lisa mentioned Shimron, it's probably almost a bonus for them because they've got solidity up top, even with Padikkal not firing. They've got Yuzvendra Chahal bowled, Prasidh Krishna, wealth of bowling. But Shimron Hetmeyer just firing is just adding to it. And we'll have some fun and games with lots and lots of matchups coming between Rajasthan and Kolkata. The 11s is a few headaches for Baz McCullum and company. That's as far as Monday Magic is concerned. We've had a hectic weekend here. We've had a double header on Sunday, but we finished just about everything except for revealing the answer to our Joy Factor question and, of course, our winner. So let's remind you of the question. This is what it was. And the question was, what Test cricket achievement does Shreyas Iyer share with one of his international teammates? And we've probably talked about him right here, right now. Two other franchise captains and a coach of a third franchise. Well, I'm starting to think someone like Gary Kirsten, maybe. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not going to start guessing. Let's give you the answer. And the answer is player of the match on Test debut. I was definitely thinking Pat Cummins. I had the wrong coach, Stephen Fleming. Faf du Plessis, Rohit Sharma, player of the match on Test debut. That's a good record. Shreyas Iyer came in there, established himself in the Indian team, and I think all these names, man of the match on Test debut, that's a big thing, Michael, a big achievement.
Yeah, it is. That's a great achievement to sneak into your first Test, sneak in the dressing room and own the game. Thank you very much. It generally goes downhill from there, but there's some superstars that it seems to have gone uphill, particularly Pat Cummins. I'm actually quite happy that he's struggling in the IPL just a little bit because he makes everything else look far too easy.
Well, come on, yeah. He made his debut when he was 18 and then, was in hiatus put him on ice for about, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, it's worked.
It's worked. Will he be in the Kolkata team tomorrow or not? Big question mark. But for now, I just suspect he'll get one more go, a couple of more goes. But let's find out our winner. Who was it who spotted that one? Well, very typically Joy think about it type question. And Cricket Nuffy's been there. He's a veteran of answering these questions. So well done, Manan Mehta. Few days since you've answered one. But now that you're back, up and running, keep that record going. Don't get onto a losing streak. One more quick look, a quick glance at the points table. I know we've shown it to you a few times, but just digest it as we finish off a very hectic 4 matches between Saturday and Sunday. Look at where Kolkata and Rajasthan are. They're up against each other, right next to each other with a net run rate that's very close to each other. So everything to play for. Who's going to sneak up? Rajasthan to get to 8 or Kolkata to get to 8? That's all going to be decided on probably around this time on Monday night. Just about time from two ends of the world to say thank you to Lisa Sthalekar and good morning. Thank you to Michael Vaughan and good evening. And thank you to everybody who's joined us and good night on Cricbuzz Live.